Well, hello and welcome everybody to another Pilates Hour. We are well into our new year. This will be our third webinar for 2024. So Whitney Vauvelle is my guest today. Whitney and I go back a number of years, more than a decade, and just sort of knowing Whitney very well, and she now is a bona fide Pilates teacher, among many other things. She certified and creative insight journey instructor in an 8-week course that originally came from Stanford University. All right. Well, listen, you and I can talk forever, and I'm going to try to make it so that we can really hit some key components. And one of the things that we wanted to discuss today in the webinar is both Whitney and I have something in common. That is, we've had multiple types of injuries, surgeries, previous sports accidents, those kind of things that have led us down our journey and have allowed us to find a pathway. And today I want to talk about something that I find very challenging to me, and it sort of ties into Whitney's journey with mind setting and the entrepreneurship and really looking for that inner peace and being able to be a great practitioner, even though we might be ourselves.
No, Brent, but that would be amazing.
That'd be like me pole vaulting. That's not
Well,
it's
yeah,
not happening.
you
I had
know,
to hang up my track spikes and that was it. So why
all
don't you
right.
tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Brent, for having me today. This is a true honor, particularly given the history and what an important support you and Polestar have been for me in my own healing journey and what's led me to become a Pilates instructor, for example. So we met probably at an all-time low in my life. I had had a spinal fusion surgery, L5S1 level, and my husband and I had really wanted to have a child of our own. I have three amazing older stepsons, and we were told that we would have to wait a year post surgery before we could try.
I don't know if my body can tolerate the training in and of itself, especially when you get into the more advanced movement. I'd love to hear your story of how you sort of navigated that, because I think a lot of people want to come into training. They love what Pilates has done for their body. They feel great. They even have the passion of possibly becoming a Pilates teacher, but they do have some physical limitations. They do have some history with surgeries or failures of their body or diseases even that prohibit them from being able to do everything in the Pilates repertoire.
Because in addition to the failed spinal fusion and the fertility issues, my mom was the other pressure in my life at the time. Bless her, my late mother, who had dementia, and I was her caregiver. And things were getting more complicated with her, and we were running out of money. For anybody who knows anything about dementia and Alzheimer's, it's all private pay. So we had sold our house. I had to move her. She was living with me part-time, trying to travel with me. And traveling was becoming much more difficult because sitting, standing, all of that was really, really challenging. Um, I remember after my very first session with you, I believe Melissa was working on me as well, doing MFR.
Even though we are in the healthcare industry, even though we're in the wellness industry, it is not ever without these types of challenges for a lot of individuals. And what I want to spend time doing today is I want to talk about tools that you use to navigate it, tools I've used to navigate it, where we have our own struggles, our own issues. And remember, these issues are not all physical. I mean, there's a lot of the heartache of not being able to have a baby and then having some miracles happen in your life. And the struggles of thinking like, how long is my mother, in my case, my stepfather, going to live with dementia? And, are we going to survive this? And the list goes on and on and on, right?
And then we found out that our second time around, our surrogate was not only pregnant, but pregnant with twins. And I reached out to, and I was like, oh my gosh, Brett, what are we going to do? I could barely lift, sit, stand. How am I going to strengthen enough to be able to support the blessing of twins? And you were working with me and you said, listen, you Do you love Pilates? You're pretty good at it. We've got this training program coming up. And I said, okay, well, I need boot camp. He's like, well, this is the best thing I could potentially offer for you. And I went into the Polestar training thinking it was really just going to be for me. And then out of that training course, I just remembered and became more present to um, how much I love teaching and sharing my knowledge with others. And that's how it really all started.
Very, and I don't want to use the word inappropriately, but selfishly or self-centered, of asking questions like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Like, you know what I want, universe. Why is this happening to me? And yet, every time we look back, at least every time I look back, I should talk for myself. Every time I look back, I realize that those challenges taught me so much and have made me such a better practitioner, have made me a better human being, have made me a better husband, a better partner. It's like, so
Absolutely. And instead of being in the woulda, coulda, shoulda and thinking about the past, or, oh no, having anxiety about the future of what's going to happen. And that's where most people live, is in the past, or stressing, worrying, about whatever it is that's to come. And having that present moment focus is critical.
And I think if you can pair them so that there are cueing inside of the Pilates movement that tie into what they're learning in the mindfulness training, is really powerful. I'm looking through the list of guests, and I see, Christy Idavoy and Claire Sparrow and a number of others, Brian Beatty, a number of colleagues of mine and in the Polestar family that also are very much in tune with the idea of mindfulness and awareness and consciousness. I also saw a comment from Carolyn Riley giving an analogy of the ladders. And I really appreciate that, because I know sometimes, especially for people who are new to health and to wellness training and teaching, it seems a little overwhelming to be able to do everything. And her comment was like, one step at a time, one rung at a time on a small ladder. Like, don't start little things. And the other thing I was going to suggest, Whitney, is, when I was first learning Pilates back in the very early or late 80s, early 90s, we didn't really have a formal training to speak of. There was no, learning objectives. There was, it was just like you'd go watch the master and you'd come back and you'd practice, or you'd teach underneath them, more authoritative. And I remember being inspired to practice Pilates and go through all of the repertoire as different systems in my body.
So I'd love to invite people to, again, participate in the Peace Postcard Project. There are now a collection of over 27,000 peace postcards from around the world. So it's really a great opportunity. You yourself can start it and then invite your studios and your friends, your family, to create a postcard. And then you collect them. You can create a display in your studio, or visually virtually online.
When we're going through our own rehabilitation, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual or psychological rehabilitation, we are, challenged. And the question keeps coming back is, what am I learning from this? How am I aligning with the universe through this? And if we can always take our challenges and put them in the framework or the light that Whitney's talked about today, and I really appreciate it, of, how do I find alignment when I feel like I'm not aligned? The book that we just produced, Principles of Movement, we have a big section on one of the principles is that of alignment. And alignment is much more than just the talus and the tibia, or the lumbar and the thoracic spine. We're talking about alignment of our mind and our perceptions and our view of the world. And I do want to finish with one other thought, and that is, we are not our thoughts. We hope that you'll join us in the future Pilates Hours, and remind everybody, above all things, especially after today's discussion, is to be kind. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday. Do you want to learn more about Pilates? Subscribe to our free webinars in the link below.